Oh, what am I doing here? And why am I going last, Kevin? I don't know if I can match any of the level of risk these people have put out there. I mean, yes, have I tucked my dick before? Yes, of course. What guy hasn't tucked his dick and made the sign of the cross in a mirror? Yes, I have done that. So, yes, I try to find things that connect me. Did I live in Chicago? Yes, I lived in Chicago. I got thrown out of Burton Place for about 5 years, and I woke up with a Pontiac gas cap the next morning in my pocket. I didn't know how it got there. Have I been lucky enough to get a handy? And fortunate? Yes, I've been fortunate enough to get a handy. I have daughters now, one that's 6, so the fact that it happened at 16 terrifies me that it's that close. When Kevin asked me to do the show, it was like Monday, and he said, I have a date in this Thursday. I got June, July, August. I said, you know what, Kev? Let's knock it out now. Let's strike while the iron's hot. There's no time like the present. Let's do it. The moment, though, you get that invitation and you say yes to it, then you start thinking, what story am I going to tell? My way, what does my way mean to me? Doing it my way or the highway, or getting out of my own way? And I thought about what my way meant to me, and how when I was young, when I was probably 5 years old, wanted to wear 2 different color socks to school. My mother said, you can't do that. People will think you're a clown. I said, yeah, what's wrong with that? I want them to think I'm a clown. So I couldn't wear 2 pairs of different color socks. But now there's a place called Mismatch. So I was ahead of my time there with the 2 different color socks. I also remember we used to come to Rockefeller Plaza from when we lived in Connecticut, and I used to skate against the crowd. So the my way thing, you know, spoke to me in that way, going against what's commonly accepted. But you know, the fact that we're even here tonight is the fact that Kevin Allison wanted to do something his way. So we're in the embodiment of the vision of someone who said, I want to do it my way, and we're here tonight because of that. And then part of it, yes, I own this theater, but I only say I own it. If you're the city of New York or the landlord, yes, I own this theater. But tonight it's Risks Theater. But yes, I was part of another theater for a long time. I decided I wanted to do my way, and ended up this theater found me, because that woman up there right above the door, Ardell Stryker, is the one who built this theater. I didn't build this theater. She built this theater in 1995 with her husband. She was 70 years old when she started the project, and she passed away in 2005. But she's the one who really built this theater. So when I thought about, you know, again, we're in the embodiment of the vision of doing it my way, I said, let's do it, let's knock it out. So I was like, should I tell the story about how I got fired from Second City for the first time, because I did it my way? Should I tell the story about how 4 gunmen walked into a poker club when I was there and a shooting took place? And I thought to myself, well, what's a better story? Because I mean, it's never going to be, those stories don't have the level of risk, and that's when I hear these people putting out their hearts on the level of risk. It's like, okay, I got fired from a job, and yes, I was in a, you know, in a place where a shooting took place. So which story would you guys rather hear of those 2? The 4 gunmen walking into a poker club, or me getting fired from Second City for inciting a riot with prom kids? Prom kids. Fired. Fired? Fired? Okay, let's tell the fire story. Okay, so I got to Chicago, November 90. I was at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and I was lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And it was Christmas Eve, 89. And I was watching SNL. And all of a sudden, I had a legitimate epiphany. I want to write for this show at some point in my life. I don't know why I had the thought, but it came to me. So I went upstairs and I began writing down sketch ideas. I've never written sketch comedy before, but I began to write down ideas and premises. I went up to my room and did that, and then I went back to college and I told some friends about this idea. And one friend said, you should check out this place called Second City. It's in Chicago. It's a, you know, like a comedy troupe. And I'd heard about SCTV but didn't make the connection. So I used the Google of the time, 411, and I called Chicago. Hello, Second City, do you have any writing classes? Yes, we have one taught by a former SNL writer named Michael McCarthy. I said, all right, great, sign me up. November 1st, 1990, I flew to Chicago with a bag of clothes and a computer to start studying sketch writing. And while I was there, I began studying improvisation at the Improv Olympic with, you know, Sharna and Dell, yes. And I had, you know, periods of depression as well, deep bouts of depression, but that's Chicago in the cold winter. And yes, I was hungover a lot too. But I began to study improvisation with Dell and Sharna, and then I eventually got hired by Second City about 4 years later. Very quickly after I got hired, I almost got fired for the first time because I had a pair of motorcycle boots that they told me I had to stop wearing. And I said, you know what, you know, you hired me wearing the boots, I'm not going to stop wearing the boots. And it became a big deal until a woman named Joyce Sloan stepped in, who was the matriarch at the time, and said, look, if he wants to wear those boots, let him wear them. When he's tired of wearing them, he'll stop wearing them. And they left me alone. I stopped wearing them about a week later. So I was working at the Second City. I'd been there for about 2.5 years, and I was touring around the country. And something happens at the Second City when you get hired and you start working there. There's a sense of like, how am I ever going to get out of here? It's a hard job to let go of. And during that time, I had, during a rehearsal process, someone was trying to show us how to do long-form improv, running someone from the audience for the President of the United States, and they wanted to show this to us on a video of other people doing it. And I was in a dressing room watching this, and I was like, look, we don't need to watch this. Let's just get up and do it. And they're like, no, let's just watch this group who did it, and then we'll go out and try it. So, of course, being mischievous child that I was, I started looking behind couches. And I found this top hat behind this couch, and I put it on my head, and it felt so right. But wearing a top hat doesn't make you crazy, but it makes people treat you like you're crazy, which in turn can make you crazy. So I started getting a little crazy. My voice altered a little bit. I had a slight British accent. And I would walk around at night wearing the top hat in Chicago. And so we were doing this show called a prom show, meaning they were going to bring prom kids into the Second City at 1 in the morning, and we were going to do a show for them. But one of the things they said for this prom show was, you can't use the F word in front of these kids. And I was like, what do you mean we can't use the F word? This is the Second City. I mean, this was built on social and political satire. This was built on saying no to the man. It's like, yeah, but this is a prom show. They're coming in at 1, you can't do it. And I was like, well, you know I have a piece in the show that I wrote that we do everywhere where I say the F word. It's like, well, just don't say the F word in that piece. Just change it. I said, okay. And then all of a sudden, I just couldn't wrap my head around the fact that my handlers were being told by their teachers that I couldn't use the F word in front of 17 and 18-year-old kids who could be going off to war. I mean, there was a war not at that time, but we're constantly in war. And, you know, for a guy my age who didn't have a Vietnam or a civil rights movement, you look for whatever battle you can find. And this was the battle I was going to take on, the fact that I, you know, couldn't say the F word in front of these kids. So before the show went on, I was the one that went out there to open the show. And I told the other members of my cast, hey, I think we should go out there and tell these people that they can't say the F word. What do you guys want to come out there with me and let them know? And they're like, no, that is the worst idea ever. I was like, all right. But I happened to be opening the show. So I went out there at the top of the show, nervous. My heart was beating. And I was like, I got to let these kids know. Hey, you guys, I just thought you'd want to know, your teachers told my handlers that you're not allowed to hear us say the F word tonight. And they were like, immediately, fuck that! Fuck high school! Fuck Miss Seymour! So I did that. They had their thing. We went out and did our show. When I went there, and it was time to do the piece, which was basically a piece where I ate a Big Mac, but I would take off the bun of the Big Mac, I'd hold out the patty, and I would say, if I went to a friend's barbecue and they tried to serve me this patty, my first question to them would be, you think I fucked your wife? Because I didn't. That was the bit. So when I got to that piece, because really when you look at that patty, it's pretty small. You know? It really is an affront to burgers. So I held it out, I said the F word, and one kid in the front row said, I thought you weren't allowed to say the F word. I said, sometimes you just gotta say, what the fuck? You speak for us! And they went nuts again. So after the show, went home. That Monday I got a call, and I was at my girlfriend's house on her couch, and I took the phone call. And it was like, look, it's me, you know, the producer of Second City. Listen, the school's not going to pay for the show because you said the F word. So listen, it's not a big deal, but you're going to have to come off the road. And I was like, because we were touring company, I said, wait a minute, so are you firing me for what I did? It's like, look, when a position opens up on one of the stages, we'll put you in. But right now, I think it's best you come off the road. You've been touring for 2.5 years. I said, wait a minute, are you firing me for what I did? Come on, I mean, there's 1,000 words you could use. I was like, yeah, but is one of them you're firing me for this? It's like, yeah, I guess you could say we're firing you for this. And I said, you know what, then I got to walk away. And I walked away from Second City. And I stopped performing for about 2.5 years. And they said the official reprimand was that I had incited these prom kids to riot. That was the official charge. So then I stopped performing and I went full tilt, you know, crazy. And then I started wearing the top hat more, the British accent got deeper. And I realized in 1996 I was having a mild nervous breakdown, but I realized that Lincoln had his in 1836, so I didn't feel that bad. You have to go through some doors eventually. I mean, Lincoln probably had to say, you know, is it me or is this slavery thing fucked up? It's not me, it's fucked up, right? So I felt like for me it was the first time where I was dealing with the fact that, like, you know, the world's not the way it is, and, you know, there's business and there's money, and however much social and political satire you want to do, there's still, you know, bills to be paid. So I stopped performing, and then moved out to LA with my girlfriend at the time. About 2.5 years later, I was at a show watching friends perform, and me and another friend were in the audience. In LA, that was what you had, 2 people in an audience watching 16 people improvise. And you still did it. So they asked my other friend, Jody Lennon, they said, hey, you want to come up and play with us? She was like, yeah, sure. So she hopped up, and all of a sudden, I was the only person in the audience not performing and only watching. And this now became too weird. I'd been in audiences, but I still kept watching improv, still loved it. But I'd never been in the audience alone, and all of a sudden hit me. It's like, no, it's not you not performing out of, you know, hundreds of people. It's you're not performing anymore, Ali. So I hopped up, stopped performing, and all of a sudden it was like stepping back into a warm bath, and I began to perform again. And then around that time, my girlfriend called, and she said, have you seen the news? And I said, no, what's up? She goes, turn on the TV. I said, what's up? She said, Chris Farley just passed away. I was like, holy shit. And I turned on the TV, and as the TV lit up, it was the wall of names at Second City that everyone who'd ever worked there. And that wall is listed according alphabetically. And if I had not quit and got fired or whatever, my name would have been beside Farley's. And all of a sudden it made sense, like, my name's not there because I quit, and there's his name, and he's passed. And so I went back to Chicago for the Christmas party at that time. It's that kind of dysfunctional family, Second City. You can get fired but still go to Christmas parties. And then I was going to go to his funeral, and there was a bus they were taking up there to go up to his funeral, and I wanted to pay my respects because he'd been very kind and generous to me when I was young. He'd come and see the show and said some nice things. So a guy who was living in that building that I was crashing at with old friends, he lived on the 3rd floor, and he said, look, I wake up every morning at 5:30, I'll wake you up, no big deal. I said, okay, great. I set the alarm, you know, for 5:30 just in case anyway. At 5:35, the alarm does not go off. But the phone rings, and I pick it up. I'm like, hello? He's like, yes, is Chris there? And I was like, who? He's like, Chris, I think he lives in the building. He has a new roommate in 3rd floor. I was like, oh, yeah, the new guy who moved in, his name is Chris. And I went up to the 3rd floor, and on his bed, he'd crashed elsewhere that night. There was on his pillow a note card that said, wake up, Ali. Or wake up, Ali. And so I ended up going to the funeral, paying my respects, and, you know, that prayer right there is a prayer right here, a clown's prayer, was one that was given out at his funeral. And then that's what caused me to start performing again, to then, you know, end up going back to Second City and performing there, and then eventually 9 months later getting fired again from Second City, but then eventually coming to New York, and 9 years later getting that job at SNL, and then all of a sudden, you know, having been a founding member of this other theater, and then a certain thing came about where someone basically said to me, if you don't like how we're doing things, why don't you leave and start your own effing theater? And then that's what said, okay, why don't I do it my way? Which then led to opening up a theater in 2002 at 29th Street, which was the original Pit. And then this, I got an email about this space 4 years ago that said, why don't you come look at this space? We know you're in the theater business. I looked at the space and I said, that's beautiful. I don't know how I'd ever do it or afford it. We walked away, 4 years passed. We got another email, the space is available again, you want to come back and look at it? We looked at it, we said, how can we do this? And then all of a sudden I realized there was a theater in that lobby area, and I said, you know what, I'm going to have to let go of having 2 theaters and turn that into a bar and coffee shop, and hopefully that will be able to allow us to keep, you know, live theater going. And then all of a sudden, the basement downstairs, which was a former gym with locker rooms and showers and stuff, we had to do the plumbing and the electrical down there, and it looked like people were trying to start a fire the way they did the electrical and start a flood. So we ended up having to demolish everything down there and start from scratch, and all of a sudden the universe gave us a second theater down there. So I don't want to say it's my way or the highway, because that kind of talk gets you shot, but I have found that it's easier if you try to build your own boat, you know, and help other people build their own boats while they're on your boat, which is what Kevin has done with this great show. I don't think this has been that funny, you know, or altogether that engaging or interesting, you know, and I know I had to sign a waiver, so I was like, do I tell this? I'm a little wary of saying something that could get me in trouble with my daughter someday. But I guess what does it really matter, you know? 100 years, all new people. I mean, Dad was a dude too, little ladies. I mean, he wasn't just Dad the whole time, ladies. All right? He was a young dude too. I mean, he tucked his dick once, maybe twice. He got a handy. There was an epidemic apparently in Japan years ago, Morgan, where ladies were putting their phones in their hoo-has with vibrators because their boyfriends could call them. So it happens, it's out there. Whatever you can think of, there's at least 100 people doing it at that moment. Whatever crazy stuff you can think about. But I thank you, Kevin, for inviting me to tell a story about my way. I think it was okay. I don't think it was that great, but hopefully it'll inspire you guys, because I guess what's the goal, guys? To entertain? Edutain? I mean, I guess that's where I'm more in the edutainment business now. The entertainment, I was okay. I'm a decent entertainer. I'm an improviser by trade. I've probably done it in front of a mic maybe 100 times in 2 decades, but it's okay. It's a different experience in front of a mic. And I mean, you know, I guess this is how we wrap it up. Kevin, do you come back out here? How does this end? Just wrap it up. Do these guys come in and play? The band, can you take me out? Thank you, everybody. Do it your way.